Well, hello YouTubers, how's it going? Going pretty good, hopefully. Today we're working on the Explorer, the 04, and I got a code that popped up here, and I pretty much know what to look for right off the bat. This is a 4.6 V8, the Eddie Bauer, and let's go inside here. I wanted to show you the code that popped up. And it looks like, we'll go ahead and read the codes real quick. I have got a PO430 catalytic efficiency below threshold. Now, if you get the PO420, it's a lot different from a PO430 from what I've found most of the time. The PO430 is usually a unmetered air leak or some kind of a moisture leak or a horrible vacuum leak. A PO420 a lot of times it's just basically you got a catalytic problem. It's either shot or you've got something upstream that was bad in the engine and it burned up the cat, from what I have discovered over the last 3 or 4 years. But it is on, and I think that's the only code I have right now. Let me go back. Let's see if we have any pending codes. Now, I had a PO420 earlier, but I replaced the catalytic converter, and that took care of it. Yeah, and this is the only code I have. That's the pending code. So we're going to hopefully fix this today. Let me go back outside, and I just want to kind of make a quick video on this, help some of you guys out, because I know it can be a little confusing and very frustrating. But by the way, I've got some of it tore apart. I got the air cleaner off, and I have a full tutorial on how to pull this intake off on the Mountaineers, the Explorers, and the Expedition. I've done a lot of these in the past, and I got a full tutorial online. If you want to see it, let me know, and I'll put a link in the video here. What you got to do is pull this intake off here. It's a plastic intake. It's one of the cheaper ones they stuck on at the factory, and what happens, a lot of the seals, the gasket mating surfaces here, the seals start to break down over time, and they leak, and they let a little air in the intake, and depending on which side of the engine bank it's leaking the worst, that's the side you'll usually get the trouble code on. But what I've done here's just 2 of these old intakes that I've replaced in the past with the same code, PO430. And if you look right here, see there's a crack. That's where a coolant was leaking out, and the gasket was pretty bad. Now, if you look closely right here, look at that crack. Can you see that right there? That's a pretty bad crack. And same thing over here. They like to leak around the water jackets and everything. And we got a crack on this one, and I think we have a crack on this one over here, I do believe, but the gasket is pretty much shot. So I'm going to pull mine off and look at it, and if I don't see any major cracks or anything, I'm just going to replace the gasket on it, because I don't feel like waiting 3 days for another intake and a gasket. Now, the right way to fix this is to buy another intake. It comes with a gasket. It's an updated version, and it'll take care of the code. But I'm going to go ahead today and just pull this intake off and see what we have under here and see what the condition of the gasket is. Now, the PO420, the death code of a catalytic converter, which I have 2 right here, which I've dealt with. This is probably what you're going to be dealing with. If your O2 light is, your check engine light's been on for a while, you've been driving around 10, 20,000 miles, don't be surprised if you pull your catalytic converters off. If you have a PO420 code, this is what it might look like on the inside. It is shot, burned completely up, and here's one that doesn't even have anything in it. It is completely melted out and gone. So don't confuse the 2 codes. I know it's a little confusing sometimes, but the PO420 is usually just a catalytic converter issue. The PO430, you're looking at intakes, gasket issues probably, or even a vacuum leak. You can even have an exhaust leak here, not a serious one, and it still won't throw that check engine light on. It's usually something up here related into unmetered air getting into the system. The combustion chamber is mixing that up, sending it down through the oxygen sensors, and it's detecting that. So that's what I'm doing out here today. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull this off today and hopefully get a gasket. And I may do a second video. If not, I'll put a update piece of information in this video somewhere and let you guys know that it took care of the PO430. Now, the PO430 on this one, the code, as soon as I clear it it would come back on in about 40 or 50 miles. It comes back relatively quick. Some vehicles would not come back on to about 200 miles. You had to drive it around for quite some time, then it would come on. So this one here is coming on pretty quickly. Just one other thing, before you go tearing off your intake, let me see if I get the camera focused a little bit better. When you go to pull off your intake, before you do that, just verify you don't have any real bad vacuum leaks. Get you some starting fluid while the engine's idling, and just kind of spray around. If you hear a change in the idle, then you know you have a pretty serious leak. But if not, if it doesn't change, then you could have just a small crack, just enough to let a little unmetered air into the system to have that check engine light come back on. So the only obstacle I have, I've got to unhook the EGR tube, which is right there, and I've already had this off, so it should be pretty easy to break loose. I've got to take this fan off, drain the antifreeze out real quick, and start unhooking some stuff here. It's not too bad of a job, and lift it up and put it back in. So I may do an update video later, but I just want to let you guys know, if you have a PO430, well, start there. Don't even look at those catalytic converters right now. Just start looking at your intake and looking for some intake air leaks and moisture. And one other thing here that you can really tell sometimes, if you're losing antifreeze, you know you have a bad intake. Plastic intake gasket, or it's leaking. I noticed today I am losing just a little bit. It was up here about a week ago. Now it's down a little bit, so it doesn't take much to throw a check engine light on. Anything over, I believe, 10% in the fuel trims will just throw that check engine light on. And I checked the fuel trims, and this side is a little weird. It doesn't seem quite right. So it is bank 2, by the way. This is bank 2 on this side. Bank 1 is on this side. This is where the number 1 cylinder is. So, all right, I've talked enough. I'll give you guys a little update. So there you go. PO430 in a nutshell. So I'll see you guys, because I probably end up with a sunburn out here today. Updates later.